Hey everyone, my name is Jack. Welcome back to the channel. I cover a variety of topics as they relate to real estate, investing, the markets, and pretty much everything as it has to do with personal finance. So if you like that sort of content, be sure to have a look around the channel, and if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe. But today I want to talk about how you can live rent-free in as little as 2 years from now, if not even quicker. And no, this plan does not entail not paying rent because you can't be evicted because the CDC says evictions are a public health crisis, but instead this involves a simple strategy for playing your cards right to where you can actually offset the majority, if not all, of your living costs just by doing a few simple things. So how do you actually live rent-free? How do you do this? It'll help to actually go through an example, so I'm going to do that right now. So for this example, I'm going to assume that you're making $40,000 per year and that you currently have about $15,000 in debt, whether it be student debt, a car loan, or whatever it happens to be. I'm assuming you already have an emergency fund, and I'm also assuming that you pay $1,000 per month currently in rent. Now you might have less debt or more debt, you might make more in a year, you might make less, but the principles here are what you should be paying attention to. You can adjust the numbers as they fit your situation. I guess now would be a good time to mention that I am not a financial advisor, so please don't sue me if you want to use this as advice, because it's not financial advice. Now the goal here is actually to buy a property at the end of the 2 years so that you can then rent out the extra space to offset your living costs. And this can be through a single family home where you rent out the extra bedrooms, or even a multi-unit, as I'll get to later, where you rent out the extra units, not just the extra bedrooms. Now to buy this property, you're going to be using an owner-occupied loan that only requires you to put 5% down on the house or the multi-unit, whatever it happens to be. And because you're using a mortgage, you're going to need to get your debt-to-income ratio down to about 45% or less after you make that purchase. But if you have existing debt, for debt-to-income ratio purposes, you want to get that existing debt out of there, because that's making it to where your debt-to-income ratio is higher than it could be, and that means you'd be able to take on less mortgage and you won't be approved for a heftier mortgage loan. Simply put, there's only so much debt that a creditor will allow you in your name to get. You can form businesses and these sorts of things and then take out business debt, but that's a whole different story. Here you are buying a property in your own name. That's the goal, at least. So the mortgage will be in your own name, which means you got to get your personal finances in order for sure. And that's what you're going to use year one for. We got to get those personal finances in order and get rid of this debt to clear your debt to income ratio so that it is ready to take on a mortgage come the end of year two. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to focus on paying down that debt. So you're making the $40,000 per year, maybe more, maybe less, but you really got to buckle down and find a way to pay off that debt in the year. Now, if you're already pretty disciplined with your spending, this could be pretty easy. If you're not, it's going to take some sacrifices. You're going to have to find ways to cut your expenses to as low as they can go, or at least low enough to where you can pay off this debt as quickly as possible. You might also explore ways to make cash on the side through a side hustle, maybe driving for Uber, maybe doing all sorts of things that you can fit in part-time in addition to your current full-time job. And then all of that extra money that you're making on the side can get thrown into this debt to get rid of it quickly. Now in this example, I am assuming that you're paying your own rent of $1,000 per month, but maybe you could bring on a roommate. Or maybe if you're fresh out of college and you happen to be living where your parents live, you could also live in your parents' house for a year. I get that not everyone has that opportunity or really wants to do it, but it could be an option for some folks, and it could be a great way to actually use that year to really focus on paying down your debt and cleaning your slate. The bigger the spread you can make between expenses and your income, the more that can be thrown into this debt to get rid of it. And all throughout this time, you're being very careful with your credit. You're already paying down this debt, but you're making sure that if you have a credit card, you're always paying off that balance in full. If you don't have a credit card, you might consider taking one out in year one, just so you can start building some extra credit and boosting your score, ideally up into about the 750s, which typically after a year or two of doing well, as long as you don't have too negative of a credit history, you should be able to boost your score pretty high so that you can get the best rates when it comes time to actually ask for a mortgage. One of my first videos actually was on the 5 basic factors that make up your credit score, so definitely check that out if you're unfamiliar about how your credit score is actually determined, since it can be helpful for actually learning how to take care of your credit. But because you worked really hard in that first year and used all of your extra money to go towards the debt payments, you now do not have any debt heading into year two. But it's not as though you're not going to be disciplined now that you have this debt gone. You still save that same $15,000 in year two, only now instead of throwing it into debt payments, you're actually keeping it in a savings account or somewhere where you can park that money off to the side so that you can use it for a down payment in the near future. So now you have $15,000 in the bank and no debt, and you're still making your $40,000 per year salary, so you're in pretty good position to actually take advantage of starting to house hack, as it's called. House hacking is this concept that I referred to at the beginning. It's where you buy buy a place that's too big for yourself and then rent out the extra space to offset your living costs. It's what I currently do in my condo. It's a 2-bed, 2-bath condo in Chicago, and I rent out the extra bedroom and bathroom to a roommate who offsets a lot of our housing costs, certainly the entire mortgage and also many of the expenses as well. And the best part is I get to keep the wealth building effects of paying down debt, and I get to actually own real estate. So as it appreciates, I get to keep that as well. So it's a great way to start building wealth through real estate. If you want to learn more about that house hack that I'm currently doing as of the filming of this video, definitely check out the video linked above where I break down the numbers and everything having to do with the house hack that I'm currently doing and showing how advantageous it is compared to just renting. So let's say you're ready to go. You want to do that. You want to start house hacking and you have your $15,000 in the bank and you decide that you're going to buy a $120,000 single family home or maybe a condo depending on the prices in your area since they vary a lot. A 5% down payment on the $120,000 home is $6,000, and then we'll include the closing costs and your initial reserves in there as well, and we'll say that takes up your entire $15 grand. And just to clarify, reserves here means the amount of money that you set off to the side so that if something comes up with the property, maybe you lose your job for a while, you have money to at least take care of the expenses in the meantime while you try to get it back up on your feet or try to renovate the property so that it's back up on its proverbial feet. You get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at about 3.5%, we'll say, which you can definitely do in today's day and age, if not even less because interest rates are so low. At about a 3.5% interest rate, you can get a mortgage for $600 a month if you include the PMI or the private mortgage insurance that you'll have to pay with a loan that has less than 20% down. You'll also have to pay taxes and insurance, which we'll say is $150 total per month. So that means you're paying $750 each month in housing costs. Now, I'm not including utilities in this example. Since you're paying utilities in either case, I just want to show the difference between renting versus owning and doing house hacking. Now, let's say you're able to rent out your extra bedroom for $600 a month. So that takes care of $600 out of the $750 that you're paying for your housing payment, taxes, and insurance. But remember, you're actually gaining money on this too, because in your mortgage payment, at least in the first year, every single month, you're paying off about $180 of your mortgage. So it's really as though you're actually gaining $30 in net worth each month, and that's assuming no appreciation on the property. Now, yes, you're $150 out of pocket. However, that out-of-pocket cost is going into the equity in the building. So you're actually using it almost like a savings account because each month that savings account grows because the mortgage is being paid down. And then by the time the loan's eventually paid off many years down the line, you're in a great position since you have a fully paid off property and all you had to do is make those consistent payments over the years, which you can offset with your rent. So think about that for a second. You took $15,000, which took a year of hard savings, but really only 1 year, and all of a sudden, you're in a position now where your housing costs are drastically lower than they were before, and you're actually gaining money to live there, as opposed to losing it all through rent. Remember, you were paying $1,000 in rent before, but now you're only paying $150 out of pocket, and really that's going towards mortgage balance, but we'll just keep it at $150 out of pocket, which means you have a difference there of $850. Those $850 in savings can be used towards pretty much anything else, including investing in other things so that you can move towards financial independence that much quicker. But what if you wanted to take this concept a step further and instead of just buying a single family home or a condo, you instead buy a multi-unit? Because thankfully, owner-occupied loans allow you to buy up to 4 units at a time. So a 4-unit building falls under an owner-occupied loan since it's considered residential for legal loan purposes. That means you can still get the same great financing, the 30-year fixed rate, 5% or even less percent down on the property because it's considered residential. And in this case, you won't have to have roommates in the same unit. You can actually have separate units so you'll have a little extra privacy as well. So let's say you take this into year 3, and in year 3, you save another $15,000 on top of the $15,000 that you already saved in year 2. So you have $30,000 in savings heading into the end of year 3. You find a $300,000 duplex or maybe other multi-unit in your area, and you pay 5% down on it. So in this case, your down payment is $15,000. Add on closing costs and reserves, and we'll say you use all of your $30,000 towards the down payment, closing costs, and reserves. With a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at about 3.5% interest, you're looking at about a $1,450 payment if you include PMI on there as well. On top of that, you'd have about $350 per month in tax and insurance payments. That means that your total housing payment with everything included would be about $1,800 per month. Now let's say you rent out the other side of the building for $1,500 per month. That means you're at about $300 out of pocket to buy a $300,000 duplex that you get to keep and start paying down that principal. Because in this case, in the first year, every single month would be about $450 in principal paydown, which means that it's really like you're gaining $150 in net worth before any appreciation. And then compare that to renting for $1,000 a month. It doesn't really seem like there's much of a contest if you can muster up the savings to actually make that down payment. These were pretty straightforward examples. There might be better deals in your market, there might be worse deals, but the fact of the matter is you can probably save a lot of money on your housing costs each month and actually start building wealth in real estate if you decide to house hack as opposed to just paying rent each month. Now, there's certainly more to house hacking than just buying the property and renting it out. There is a process involved. You have to know what a good deal is. You have to know how to run the numbers on a deal. You have to know how to manage the property. Do you use a manager? All this sort of stuff. These are the things I go over on my channel all the time, using my own experiences and my own deals as proof and examples so that you can learn from them. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of those videos, since I put out new videos every single week. But anyways, I hope this was helpful for learning about what house hacking is and how you can drastically reduce your housing costs in as little as 2 years, if not less, depending on your financial situation. But even if it takes you longer than 2 years to get there, wouldn't you be in a much better financial position having your housing costs drastically reduced, having that money available for other things, and just being that much more financially flexible in the meantime? It can be such a powerful strategy, not only for getting started in real estate, but also just for reducing your living costs and actually having that money available to supercharge your investing elsewhere. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. If you like this video, please like it since it helps the channel out a lot. As I mentioned, I have new videos every single week as they relate to real estate, investing, the markets, and pretty much everything as it has to do with personal finance. So if you like that sort of content, be sure to subscribe. And if you're at all interested in real estate, definitely check out my book, The One Property Retirement, that actually uses house hacking as sort of the base to springboard into a much larger retirement strategy. It's great for beginners, especially who might be unfamiliar with how the real estate process actually looks mechanically, and it teaches you how to analyze deals and everything from start to finish. Definitely check it out. And if you do buy a copy and end up reading it, definitely leave a review on Amazon. That would be great, and I'd greatly appreciate it. But until next time, take care.